When I first took over, I was really scared of budgets. We had a consultant coming in at the time who was helping with exhibit planning. And I said, Jim, I just don't think I can do this. And he said, there's a story there. And my background is originally in English before I switched to science, and I just went, there's a story? And he said, yes, the numbers tell a story. And I used to hate budgets, and let me tell you how I found the story. And he, in about a half hour, showed me how to read the story and the numbers. And that just was so helpful. And so for those who are have math panic, just remember there's a story there. And you just need to find it and figure out how to tell it.
Well, finance to me is the way that we understand the activities in our organization. It's a language for comparing the activities in our organization, the outcomes. It's a language for taking value that for a variety of stakeholders, contexts, situations may be very different, and then boiling it down to a similar unit so that we can more easily compare the variety of things we do and understand where one's better than another.
Numbers are easier to talk about than coming together on an artistic vision. And so in trying to do both, we always talked about charts and graphs, and we didn't get to the real core value statements about what we were trying to do. So in some sense, there's an attempt to certainly not hide financial information, to still try to have a very clear communication about it, but to not let that be the whole conversation all the time. And that's hard to do when you're coming out of a, crunch.
I guess that budget decisions are often made in dialogue with each. There's 14 full-time people in the organization. So you can have a pretty substantive discussion with each of those people about where they are, what's going on, where they are financially, what they think is valuable in terms of the organization's finance. If we do this, it will cost this, which means we won't be able to do that. What do you think? So that there's a great deal of participation on a very pragmatic level. It isn't, in terms of getting that input, so that when we actually move forward with things, for the most part, not always, it's with an understanding, even if it isn't with an assent, that even if I say, I don't agree with that, but everybody got to say their piece, and the arguments were cogent, and okay, we're going to go ahead.
We're pretty fortunate at Fracture Atlas, where we operate the entire organization on custom-built infrastructure. This allows us to automate anything that can be automated, so that only the things that humans can do are what humans do. So we automate everything from stuff coming through our website to our database to QuickBooks, which means we're able to make real-time decisions based on real-time data. The next thing that we do, like most organizations, we sort of roll this into a larger monthly report so that our senior staff can see more fine-grained detail about what's happening with their program, how they're spending restricted grants, what's left, what do we need to do. We have quarterly board meetings, so we then roll this into a quarterly report that includes a couple of different reports. One is a dashboard for the board. There's some board members who just need sort of the high-level snapshot, and then they can ask questions based on that. Other board members, as we all know, love the nitty-gritty, and so we have the reports for that. We strive for a great deal of transparency. If you go to our website, you can see real-time stats on our membership. Where is our membership coming from? How many new members do we have in the last week and last month? And this is also tied to our fiscal sponsorship program. How are our projects raising money, and how are our projects spending money? And you can divvy this up by discipline, by state, so you can see, all right, dance companies in dance projects in New York State, how are they spending their money? And you can see the large percentage are raising money through individuals, and they're spending it on artist fees. And so this allows both our projects, our constituent groups, our funders to see a largely undocumented group of artists operating in the country.
About
2 years ago, we got into the world of balanced scorecards and dashboards as a way of measuring our success with both fundamental work as well as our strategic plan goals. And our strategic plans are designed not to enumerate all of the fundamental, very important work we do, but rather what are those game changers you're looking for, special projects, those kind of things. So we started out designing a scorecard at the institution level, the department level, and the individual staff member level, and designed it, organized it according to the current strategic plan that we had at that time. So it started to buckle under its own weight and became very lengthy and contained too much process and not enough deliverables and outcomes. And it was enumerating fundamental work that we always do that's important. We then morphed it again to move the fundamental work to the individual scorecard. So if you're the accountant, it is very important that we go through the audit and that we get a clean opinion, but that doesn't belong on the institutional scorecard. Yet it's important. We're very glad you're doing it and that you do an excellent job, but that's not where it belongs. And so that's been a process for staff to be comfortable with it, so they can feel validated at the individual staff level and the department level. But we need the whole staff to rally around maybe 5 things that belong on an institutional scorecard. And this is where it gets to be a communication piece that can go outside the walls to the external audience, to the stakeholders. Something that they see as important, tied to the mission, but very succinct and measurable. So we now have married metrics with the scorecard into one document.
Finance, this language, this set of processes, this way of thinking, deliver a few things for an organization that other aspects of the organization or ways of thinking don't deliver quite as well. One is really discipline. Finance is good at discipline. And especially in areas where creativity and innovation is so important to getting good outcomes. Layering finance on top of that provides the necessary discipline, and if you can do them very well together, you get good outcomes where appropriate balance comes into play.
I think the thing that's most important when you're dealing with boards or councils is clarity. And now it's called transparency, which sometimes I think transparency is a little misleading because then you tend to give too much information and make it complicated for them to understand. So I think the most important thing is they want to understand what the programs are, what those resources for those programs are, and what the expenses are. Not at the granular level, but at the high level, and then obviously what the results or planned results of those are compared to previous results, which is also important. So you need to have some kind of baseline for them to compare because they're not in the business generally. They're in other businesses. So they understand, lots of them, especially on our board, understand finances, but don't necessarily know the intricacies of each of our programs, nor should they since they're in governance. But you need to be able to explain that to them in an easy, understandable way where they're not getting confused by too much detail, but can really understand the bottom line and where the resource allocation is happening.